Excellent. There we go. So for the third time, yes, Rushil, killer. Yeah, Rushil, you've been here since day one, so obviously huge shout out. But okay, so for the new faces that are joining, welcome to Closers into Consultants. Today we're going to do a live training on how to go out there and get fractional sales consulting clients. This is the live teaching of the most recent content I created or guide on how to go out there and get fractional sales consulting clients. Some of you guys are here as a direct product of that. Some of you guys are here because you've come through some of my other stuff in my funnel. I know this is pretty last moment, so I appreciate all of you guys who took the time today. But yeah, we're going to go in depth and we'll make it a forum where we can answer really any and all questions you guys have around the strategy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so order of business, how to get fractional sales consulting clients. How do I get a fractional sales consulting client? So today, I just want to show you how you guys can actually begin using this immediately. Like, it's possible for you to go out there and start attracting clients or having conversations with potential clients without needing a huge brand, without needing to have tons of content, or without needing any prior experience. This is actually what I did when starting my journey in fractional sales consulting to get my first client. And I'd ask you guys a question in the chat. I know some of you guys personally, and I know I see some new faces as well, but drop a 1 in the chat if you guys are brand new to the topic of sales consulting and have never had a client before. And drop a 2 if you guys are experienced, meaning you've had consulting, maybe you've been hired for consulting or you've done work. I'm just kind of curious to see the split. So Daniel Schrader, brand new. Josh, you've done it before. Asim has done it before. Sweet. Rusha 1. Okay, so pretty even split. We don't have a huge crowd, so I've tailored around you guys. And yeah, we'll open it up. Well, we'll make sure I'll make it a point to have room where you can have questions as we go through. So for those of you guys that are brand new, this works just as well. Even if you are experienced, this works even better because you have a little bit more experience to your name or things that you can talk about. So, and once more, this is what I did. Like, what I show you today is the exact strategy that I did to get my first fractional sales consulting client. Now, for those of you guys who have seen my longer video on YouTube, it wasn't really the perfect cut and dry deal, but it was the first time that someone had ever said, hey, your experience seems worth it. We're willing to give you $10,000 a month plus $5,000 to leave everything that you've got and work with us right now. I still remember the day that I was out there in Vegas when they made me the offer over the phone. And I just remember being shocked. I was like, oh my God, I remember how many deals I had to, how much work I had to do to close calls one to one to get someone to, to earn $10,000, let alone making that and then some. Just from my experience, I did have to take some calls. Once more, it's a longer story, but it was the first sort of big breakthrough. And this is the process too that we currently show our students inside of the program. It's what Chase used to get his client. It's what Jack used to get his. It's what Ethan's using currently. And we have some new faces as well. For those of you guys who've seen my marketing, we do have new people coming into this. We've got over 30, but Amir is in negotiations right now with someone who he's working on the process of closing. Joseph is using this as we speak to go out there to the market. And June, who I'm working with closely on some paid ad strategies, is doing it as well. And to bring this even further as proof that this is possible, one of our other members, Dakota, quite literally got a client today. We did kind of point him in the direction, but once again, he followed the same protocol of just kind of leading with value the things that he knew to build a large enough gap to be able to close that deal. Just because someone says, hey, this is someone who might be interesting, or, kind of pointed him in the direction of who he should contact or what he should send, doesn't mean that they're necessarily signed with you. So Dakota came all the way through. It's not a huge deal. It's $5,000 a month. It's $5,000 a month and 3% of rev from the start. They're doing a sales team build and offer from zero, then 7.5% and 6% once they hit 100K. And then once they, grow past that, goal is to get him to renegotiate probably around that 100K mark. But Dakota's situation prior is he was getting paid hourly working kind of virtual customer support / sales for a larger business. And he was really hating it. And so he joined FSC. He's got a lot of sales experience, but not a ton as a consultant, never really kind of ran his own quasi agency thing. So, but yeah, point being is this works to get people to want to engage and do business with you. So if you guys are ready, go ahead and drop a 2 in the chat. I'll go ahead and crack into the strategy. Rush, I'm seeing here, shout out Ethan. It's hilarious. Yeah, love it. But yeah, sweet. Josh, grade 2. Sim, grade 2. Daniel Schrader. Okay. Love it. Excellent. So first things first, when it comes to getting a fractional sales consulting client, it's going to be positioning. So Positioning is by far the most important thing. Odds are you've kind of heard of this or maybe are aware of it, but maybe haven't defined it in these terms. But positioning is nothing more than building a rational gap between you and your client in experience. Meaning, when your client and you look at their business, you should be the one that knows more, and they should be the one that believes that you know more about their situation. When you talk about in sales, the whole phenomenon of when they believe you know more about their situation than they do, then they trust you, it is very true. But positioning goes beyond just like the rational argument, but it's also just how they feel towards you. Prospects, or not prospects, but potential customers or potential clients, they let their guards down significantly the moment that they feel like you have an edge up in terms of competency, when they feel that there's a large gap between what you know and what they understand. And I say this to say because like capability is perceived before it is tested. If you've ever seen someone who's huge in the gym, you know that he can lift heavy weight because he's got large muscles on him, not because you went and pushed up against him and waited to see how strong he was. So capability is perceived before it is tested. And that's why it's so important to get your positioning down. And the best way to nail your positioning is to just simply focus on what you know and are truly great at. And a mindset that you want to have about this is never ask yourself, where do I start? You should always ask yourself, how do I make this better? Because if you're thinking about what you can make better, it implies that you already know where you are, you already know what you're doing. There's things to just build upon what you have. I think the biggest place that I've seen a lot of students get stuck is they ask me like, what niche, where do I, what niche, where do I look exactly? How do I begin doing the outreach? What do I give these guys? That's all where do I start questions. I'm going to show you guys today how you can take all the stuff you already have and make it better to eventually progress maybe someone you immediately know, or go out there and get someone new and get them to, progress towards a deal. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the preface, once more, we've got the pyramid here that we're going to work through from top to bottom. The preface is going to be, what products have I sold? Now, the reason why we want to start by asking ourselves, what products have I sold, is because you're not going to pick what's my niche. Your niche is the things that you've sold before. And what I mean by products you are sold is that these are the things that you know best. What are things that you've sold any of, really? You don't even have to have been the top producer. You just have to have had practical experience selling something. Why? Because if you have that experience, and I'll explain a little bit more about it later, it gives you something that somebody else doesn't have, which is just that tacit, tangible experience, or a tacit feeling that comes from experience, the way to talk about something from a point of perspective or a place of knowledge. I remember June said one of the first things that he observed about me is it's really clear that I talk about things from experience as opposed to just anecdotally. And it's true. You can just see that. That's what mastery, that's what greatness looks like. Anybody that's given you really good advice on anything ever most likely was able to connect it back to a similar experience that they shared and was able to talk to it from that perspective. I'll talk more about that later, but the best place to begin is products you have sold, because these are the things that you know best. The reason why this is important is because when you're approaching somebody to step into their business, to step in their sales function, is you want the only thing that you don't know, or the only thing to be uncertain about, is your client and how they're going to react. The only person you want to manage and really keep your time focused on is keeping your client happy. You want to be able to just step into the sales process and be able to understand, okay, this is kind of how the scripts work. This is how everything kind of flows together. You want to be able to have an intelligent enough conversation. And so you want to keep the unknown, which your client understands. Now, the way that you go about beginning in this is making a list of products that you have sold. So start with like, what have you have sold and how many products have you sold? That's really the best place to begin as far as putting this into practice. Make a list of everything. And I would ask you guys in the chat too, how many products have you guys sold? Before I found my way to Deal, the client that paid me $10,000 a month, I had probably sold 10, 12 different things. Now, did I sell a ton of them? Did I sell a lot of volume of each? Some I sold a lot more than others, but that's where I'd ask you guys, drop a number in the chat. How many products have you sold? How many offers have you been on? How many industries have you been in? Genuinely curious. 10? Okay, exactly. So that's great. Rusha, lost count. Josh, three. Okay, we'll give a little bit more time. But yeah, so Daniel, prime example. If you have 10 different products you've sold, look at that as like 10 different places you can start when it comes to finding clients. And we're going to explain how you kind of go about those systematically. But honestly, the more things that you've sold, the better, because it gives you more chances or more places to begin to look. So don't feel like, hey, where do I pick my niche? Just make a list of the 10 things and then keep following along with this exercise. But we'll pick one of them for all intents and purposes. Daniel, I'd ask, what is one industry that you've sold in? One of the 10, or which one was your favorite, I would ask. Construction. Interesting. And were these construction products or construction services? Services. Sweet. So excellent. So yeah, that's a prime like qualifier for actually going out and trying to find a client. Services work great because typically the price points are high enough. We will do a separate training on how do I price my services and how to make sure that things fit well with your clients. I have a video coming out on that on YouTube soon. But yeah, so that's a prime example. So following along with this exercise, the next thing that we're then going to look at is going to be, do I know people selling this? And could I find someone selling this? But before that, any questions on what I just taught about products that I've sold and kind of how that all works as far as figuring out where to start? If no questions, drop a 2 in the chat and I'll keep rolling forward. Sweet. Cool. Excellent. Cool. Love it. Okay. So now the next question to ask yourself is, do I know people selling this, or could I find someone selling this? So the reason why you want to start with, or what I mean by do I know people selling this, or could I find somebody selling this, is that these are people who will listen to you. If you guys ever get a cold DM or cold anything ever, the first thing is like, okay, what does this guy want? I get bombarded with these daily now that I kind of run this business. Everyone asks me, do you have an email do you have a strategy for cold email? Do you have this? Do you have that? So by starting with people that you know, or finding people who sell something very similar, you automatically get yourself a pretty good foot in the door, and they're more likely to listen. And I'll explain in the next, the next tier of this, or the next layer down, exactly what to say to get yourself in the door. I'll give you guys some practical examples. But this is where you want to start. So the place to begin is actually just creating a list. You want to make a list of people that you know personally selling these things, or a list of people that you can find who sell exactly the same thing or something similar. Now, for people you know, they can't be people who have worked for a company that you've worked for. They have to be people working in, sort of a business selling something similar. The reason why you want to approach people you know is because that's an easier point of reference when it comes to talking to the business owner. Also, you can kind of talk with that person and explain, share some of your insights and resources, get some results, and use that as a hook to get up to the business. Some people will take that so far and create sales coaching. I believe that sales coaching or selling sales training should only be used as like your intro offer for becoming a fractional sales consultant. That's what one of our students, June, has done. That's kind of the direction he's going now, is he kind of took the direction of doing a bunch of sales coaching. If any of you guys have heard of him or seen him on social media before, you'll see that he did a bunch of posts and stuff, and he started ripping some sales coaching. It works great because if you're doing sales coaching, if your student gets results, it gives you a really good case study once more, a really good leg in the door, foot in the door for going to the business owner and making a case. Also, welcome, Jim. I saw you just hopped in. We're a good ways through, but in today's session, and the recording will be uploaded into the classroom. But today we're talking about how do I get fractional sales consulting clients. Obviously, there's 3 levels to this, and we're already at the second one. The recording will be uploaded in school after the fact if you want to catch that. But welcome, glad to have you with us. Okay, I saw something come into the chat. Yep, sweet. And so yeah, those are the people that you want to approach. So the place to begin is making a list. It can be 5, it can be 10 of just people that you know selling it, or businesses that you know are selling an exact similar service. Because how much easier is it to approach the business saying, hey, like, you don't even have to say, I'm trying to sell you something. As far as some samples of exactly what you should say, there was some in the original training, but it's pretty much, hey, saw you sell something similar to what I did. Here's my scripts. Are you any interest in the scripts that I use to have sold, 1.2 million of, business op? Any interest in the scripts that I use to sell $500,000 in a month of construction services? Any interest in the scripts that I use to, or the resources that I use to X result that you got with them? It's a really compelling offer. This is also kind of another strategy or approach to which people do lead magnets. And if you want to take this to paid ads, which we'll talk about another time, that is what your paid ad actually is. It's your scripts and your resources. So this is why I recommend you start there. Yes, Rushel dropped a great point. Back up the assets with proof. So coming into the next pillar, we'll talk a little bit about those. But another way to make them stronger as well is stacking assets on top of each other, stacking resources. So what I mean by that is if you're going to give someone a sales script, if you attach sales calls to it, it makes it that much more credible. Because when the person gets it, they're going to be like, okay, here's the script that, did close $20,000 deals, and here's a $20,000 deal being closed, and they can watch and see it happen, it creates a more compelling argument. It's not necessarily something they may or may not use it, but the thing is even if they try to use it, there most likely will be a knowledge gap, which takes us to the third portion of this, which I'll talk about in a moment. But before that, I know we just covered, what's the approach, or what do you do once you have defined products that you've sold? You want to create a list of people that you know who are selling it. Those are the people you're going to go to. Any questions on sort of where to begin with approaching potential clients or getting a list of potential clients? You don't necessarily need to approach them yet. Sweet. Cool. Now, the next thing that you're going to do once you've gotten a list of people, once you've listed products that you've sold, and you have now a list of people that you know sell those things or businesses that sell those things, collect your assets, collect your resources, go backwards in time. And you might not have all of it, and that's okay. If you don't have all of it, create some of it, recreate it to the best of your ability. That is kind of the content that you want to make. Now, you don't have to post that publicly or kind of blast it out in the world, but you just want to have it because that's what you're going to lead with. That's what you're going to lead with. I realize I kind of talked about that a moment ago, but you want to collect your sales scripts, your call recordings, your presentations, or any sort of pitches, any sort of social proof, anything and everything that you've got around you using the resources that you gave to somebody. You want to have those, and that's what you're going to lead with value with to get in the door. So this is what you're going to present to somebody. And the reason why this works, as I kind of covered a moment ago, is it's a resistanceless way to actually get someone to listen to you. It's a resistanceless way to get engagement. If you message somebody out of the blue, I get a lot, which is like, hey, here's my email script. Do you want me to write cold emails for you? There's a very big difference to doing some work for somebody to see if they like it, as opposed to giving somebody something they know that is proven. I am way more likely to respond to, hey, here's something that I have used, tried, and spent a lot of time developing. So I'm going to save you the learning time to just get the result, as opposed to, hey, let me create something for you that may or may not work because it hasn't been tested on your business. That's why you want to use the resources that you have, as opposed to creating something from scratch, as it just works so much better for getting responses. And the more resources that you have, the better. The reason why you want to collect as many is not only to stack them, but that will be your follow-up if need be. If someone doesn't engage, if you say, hey, do you want my scripts that I use to close X, Y, and Z? You can then say, hey, here's the appointment. What about the maybe not the closing script? What about the appointment setting script? Or if they say yes and don't re-engage with you or don't do anything after that, and say, hey, here's the appointment setting script. Just keep giving them things that they will use and find and potentially see value in. Excellent. I saw something in the chat. Going to leveraging lead dating coach I sold as a closer, referencing it being as a consultant for other dating coaches. Yes, that's the prime use case. So if you've got that, if you've got the funnel templates, if you've got the sales scripts, if you've got the appointment setting scripts, if you got the application survey that they used pre-call, realize all of those things, all of those pieces of information are anxieties that business owners have on a daily basis. Is my script any good? Is my pitch any good? Is my funnel good? Is my lead magnet any good? And this is where if you have proven pieces that you've seen work other places and you just offer that, they'll see that much value in it. Which comes to questions. I see you guys are asking them in the chat. So if you have any questions on this topic, drop them. Is unsolicited advice from strangers appreciated? Unsolicited advice from strangers is not appreciated, but you're not giving them advice. You're just saying, hey, here's something that got this result. Any interest? Let them come to you, as opposed to saying, hey, let me create you, or I get these all day, but it's like, I'll get someone who will go through my funnel and film me a Loom video, picking the whole thing apart. And then I'll click on their Instagram and they've got like 4 photos. None of it's related to their business. Now, I'm not saying what he did is wrong. It's the strategy that he used to communicate was wrong. If he had just said, hey, here's email scripts that I have used for this person, and this person, and gotten these results, any interest? I'm more apt to respond. And if I look, I might say, hey, who is this guy? How do you know these are legit? I'm actually the hidden copywriter for X, Y, and Z. I wouldn't have access to these if I didn't know my stuff. So that's how you completely kind of reverse the dynamic or overcome some of those concerns someone might have to responding to you. So great question. But as far as sending your resources as outreach or as kind of like your first touch point, any other questions on those? What's the best working right now to book a meeting? Cold email with a Loom video, cold LinkedIn email plus scripts. So it doesn't matter where you do it. I recommend, honestly, like the less, the better. Those of you guys who got here because I messaged you in school, it was like, hey, I just created a free training on how to get XYZ result. Any interest, send the thumbs up and just wait for a thumbs up. I'm a closer, so none of the scripts are mine. They are my past employers. Okay, that is a really great point. So this is where I'm kind of like, the scripts are your employers. The way which you use the script is yours. The way in which you present the product is yours. It's like if someone gave you sheet music to play a song and then you added your own little stylistic twist, is it the song owner's or is it yours? Yes, there's kind of the cross themes there together, but so this is where your value as a salesperson, and one of the things that you're really trying to build value around is just the nuance that you take to selling something. Daniel, well, I'd say, yeah, Daniel, the way in which you would present construction services that closes the deal is something that most likely maybe someone else has used, but some people will just watch it and love it. That's why closers love watching sales calls. That's why business owners really love like really good sales calls. Closers and business owners, I'd say, are pretty close together, and the things that they like, they just have slightly different responsibilities. Yeah. So that's why I'd say don't worry about necessarily the script not being yours. The value is in the call and the way in which you use the script, the way you explain the script, right? It's like client acquisition. Example, this client acquisition by sending resources is not new, but the nuance in which I tell you guys to do things to get a specific result, that's what makes it new. That's what makes it valuable. Yeah, I love that. Noah asked a question. What would you say only work in industries? Would you say only work in industries that you've been in? I would say yes. Only start with industries you've been in. You don't have to work there permanently. Only start there, because if you don't have a lot of confidence in if you don't have a lot of confidence in consulting yet, you don't want to take on something like, you don't want to step into too many unknown unknowns. You want to start with industries that you already have some, like, you want to remove variables. Like if you already know how customers think, if you already know how business owners think, if you already know how the product works, that's where you want, that will keep you certain as you're trying to learn the other skills of consulting. That's why I'd say start there. Charlie asked a question. It's more like, I've been using X, Y, and Z for bait to catch marlin versus you would use XYZ bait to catch marlin. The latter is unsolicited. Exactly. Like, hey, any interest in the thing I use to get result? As opposed to, this is what you could do better in your business. No one wants to hear what they could do better. It's like a big thing. It's like, who are you and why should I listen to you? Right? Until you've actually developed like a sizable amount of positioning is when somebody will listen to you. But until then, be very direct with what the outcome you can help. This is why you hear a lot of marketers say, like, just make your offer. The offer is the outcome that you can get somebody. Don't explain to them all that. Just say, I'm going to get you this result. I'm going to get you this result. Do you want the thing that we use to get that? That does a lot better. Like if you think about some of the most trending videos on YouTube, it's typically like how I grew from $0 to $400,000 a month in dropshipping, as opposed to what you can do better to grow to 400,000. We all have an ego. And so you don't want to give people advice. You just want to tell them what you did or promise them an outcome. Cool. Noah, what if you worked in an industry, but worked in a different niche within the industry? How would that work? Could you give an example? And then Charlie asked, so there's no new scripts. Everything's being hijacked and repurposed. No original languaging scripts. The person employer borrowed 97% DNA of someone else's script, not advocating stealing, but there's nothing new under the sun. Closing language, dramatically new, just subtle variations. Exactly. Like all the best movies pretty much follow the same plot line. All the best songs pretty much follow the same chord progression. The value is not in the chord progression. The value is not in the plot line. It's the way in which those things are brought together to create an experience. That's why I say, like, how you guys conduct sales calls is what people love. All the people that joined identity closing for me bought it because they loved how I sold. And that's why people like natural selling. Like natural selling to NEPQ, regardless of who created it, people like Michael because of how Michael thinks, because of how Michael approaches things, his worldview. That's what people are really buying more of. It's not even really the tactics. So yeah, none of the stuff is new. It's just how you choose to use it to get a result that adds value to it. And the better you can kind of make people aware of that is where you begin to develop like a real like difference. That's your unique selling proposition. Marketing is nothing more than the meaningful art of differentiation. And so slowly making people aware of how this is different, how this is different, how this is different will eventually give them enough hope to want to try something new. Sweet. Example, telecom. So I worked on the provider side, and Dent was everything from A to Z, where I want to tap into the distribution side of accessories. Oh, example, telecom. I worked in the provider side and dealt with everything from A to Z, but where I want to tap into is distribution side for accessories. So if telecom companies have providers and distributions, then you could lead with the providers, set clean house there, get everything running good, and then just find your way into distributions. So that's kind of my approach that I would take. Start with the area that you can get results in, and once you can get results in it, they'll trust you with other things. Cool. Yeah. Josh, besides being a closer for dating coaching, I worked as a salesperson for Third Bridge, SDR role, ranked third out of 202 reps for booking meetings with C-suites, which is SMB. Which SMB would match to Third Bridge? Third Bridge sells consultative services, works with Bain, McKinsey. So it's kind of complex of a question there. I don't necessarily know, where you're asking that specifically. But yes, and any place where you have the resources, you just want to lead with, hey, this is how I got this result. If you want to see me getting this result, show them you doing the work. Show them the call, show them you doing the work. People love that. Cool. And I'll give you guys a practical example of this as well in not too long. But sweet, rolling into the next tier, which is going to be the specific knowledge. And I kind of hinted about it earlier, but this is really where you begin to the knowledge gap, begin to really nail your positioning. Because once more, positioning is the thing that's going to get you the deal. They have to feel like there's a large enough gap between what you know and what they know to want to pay you to close that. And the way that you do that is, okay, I've sold something like this, and here's me talking to people I know who've sold this, and here's proof that I can get results selling these things. And let me explain it to you in even more detail than you could probably, articulate yourself. Let me prove my competency by explaining things to the level that you can't. It's like Eskimos have 42 different words for snow, while someone in California might have 3, right? If you were stuck in the Arctic tundra, who would you pay to get advice? So that's how business owners sometimes are with their sales department. So what this is building the gap between your understanding. And why this is important is that it will make them come to you. It makes them see you as the expert. And the way in which you do this is connecting everything to value in terms of outcomes. And so some examples of that are, if you get someone on really as far as perfect execution, right? Once you have your resources, contact people, contact maybe 5, 10 people, say, hey, do you want the script that I used to get this result? This one script that I used to get the result. When they say yes, send them it and ask them, if you have any questions, let me know. Or ask them, are you a business owner or an offer owner? If they say that, you can continue to message with them. You can be very general. Hey, what do you think of the train? Do you have any questions on it? Have you tried using it yet? That's probably a better question. Have you tried using it yet? They'll give you a yes or a no or a yes. How did it work? It didn't work. Oh, do you want to hop on Zoom? How did it work? It worked well. Interesting. Do you want to hop on Zoom and discuss? Find any reason to get them on Zoom. And then when you're on Zoom, you're going to answer any questions you've got and begin to focus the conversation around just their sales process. Meaning, how can using what you gave them properly benefit the business owner? Meaning, hey, if you use these scripts properly, or if you really master this process within your business, it will lower your cost to acquire a customer. It will raise your cash collection. It will raise your show rates. How will this resource better your customers? Hey, if you use this process, it's going to be easier for new hires to understand your market and better talk to customers. It's going to create a better experience for people who are considering buying your service. It's going to help build better, brand equity or brand will. It's going to help your team communicate better and understanding how your customers think better. Explain how these resources can help benefit their team. Okay, if you use these, your team's going to feel less stressed. New hires are going to feel less stressed. Your onboarding department is going to have a much easier time dealing with new customers because they're coming in with the right understanding expectations, especially if you give somebody a new offer. And then the other thing you want to connect it to is how it can properly benefit their brand and marketing. If you do this properly, it should better connect to your marketing, or you can use this actually to serve your marketing angles and hooks, or you can use this to, make your brand just better well known by having a way better offer compared to everybody else. So I'll give you an example of all of this, but before that, any questions as far as how you kind of carry a conversation with a potential client and bringing that home? Cool. Excellent. Sweet. If no questions, I'll keep rolling on. If you guys think of any, drop them in the chat. So let me give you an example of what this looks like, because I want to explain the start to finish of how I got my first 10K a month client. The people that came to me and offered me $10,000 plus 5K and then 10% of any cash I collected to leave what I was doing and work with them. So the start to finish story on that is I was working as a sales manager at the time, and someone had caught wind of my experience selling in business buying, mergers and acquisitions. Now, this company had been trying to grow in mergers and acquisitions, like selling a coaching program for a while. They just had a really hard time. Some of their biggest challenges were, one, to sell business buying and mergers and acquisitions. It's a complex thing to wrap your head around, right? Like business buying is not intuitive. It's not, like drop shipping where there's a ton of stuff. It's really nuanced. And so they kept hiring salespeople, but there was a lot of churn because a lot of their sales team couldn't understand or learn how to talk to this demographic quickly enough. Because the people who are really good at whatever you sell know a lot about whatever it is. This is why we do this with business owners. Business owners know a lot about their business, so you got to outsmart them in something, which is going to be sales. So I had had a friend, believe it or not, like I said, I knew somebody who was selling for this business. And I said, hey, how's it going? And he says, it's not going well at all. And I asked to meet with him. And I actually offered him my scripts and resources. And actually, I don't think I gave my scripts and resources, quite frankly, but I remember meeting with him and just giving him advice. Once more, I did kind of the fourth pillar here. I explained, like, this is how these business owners think. This is how the customers think. This is what you can do. And he said, hey, man, like, this is really, really helpful. I don't know if I can really do much with this information, but let me connect you with the higher up. And so he created a connection between me and the business, well, not the business owner, but like the business owner's number two in marketing. Because I was aware of the business owner. I knew that this guy existed. I think I had originally, I expressed some interest in meeting with him, but I just didn't have a good way to like find my way to the business owner. And once more, I hate to be that cold email guy that's just, hey, do you want advice on how to do your business better? I didn't have any idea of these tactics and things back then. And what that then progressed to is I got invited to a WhatsApp chat with the sales rep that I knew and the sales manager for this business. And I was given an introduction saying, hey, this is Caleb. He knows a lot about selling mergers and acquisitions products. He sold for XYZ company and this company. If you're curious to meeting with him, I'm sure he'd be able to make the time and kind of explain all that he knows. I didn't pitch him anything. I pretty much just said, hey man, would love to hop on Zoom and explain to you all I know about selling this type of product, the way that you guys are trying to sell it. And he said, sure. We hopped on Zoom once and I asked him, just had a conversation, how's it going? Nice to meet you. His name was Terry, by the way. And it was an interesting conversation. I didn't really think much of it. It didn't really go anywhere. I met with him. We just talked about some of the challenges in the business. I could see that there was a huge gap between what I understood about selling business buying as opposed to what he understood. Because the thing is, he didn't know anything about the niche either. And he had to lead a team of salespeople as a leader that doesn't know anything about the product that they are selling. And so it was clear that he had that. He knew how to sell, but he just didn't know anything about selling this type of product specifically. He was no idea how business buying worked, but I knew that. This is where there was a huge positioning, gap between us. And I said, hey, let me give you this. Let me give you my scripts and resources that I used to sell this. And let me give you some examples because I can tell you how to sell it, or I can just give you like samples of how to sell it. Whether you use it or not makes no difference to me, but just use it because I went through a lot of pain having to figure out how to sell this stuff. And I sent him this. Acquisitions.com. It's a company I used to sell for. This is not Hormozi's company. Don't have it confused with that. I had somebody buy once for, I think 10K it was, that thought that this was Hormozi's company. And it wasn't until onboarding that he was like, so when do we meet Hormozi? And I'd said, you don't, this isn't his business. And he was like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't know how at any point during this, he didn't realize it wasn't Hormozi's. But anyhow, I sent him this. I sent him my start to finish script and, connecting, problem awareness, solution. It's kind of a remake of NEPQ with some of my own flair in there. This somehow circulated through the company in like a 72-hour window that I then got messaged by Terry, hey man, Alex Mayer, the owner of the business, would like to meet with you. And I said, sure, what does that mean? And he said, I'm going to create a WhatsApp group chat and we're going to call and he wants to speak to you. And so from there, I just got spontaneously added to this chat with Terry, Alex, and lawyer and assistant, the five of us and me. And just a couple of texts transpired, and then I get a call on my phone it's got Terry's photo, Alex's photo, these two other people, and it's like ringing for me. And I have no idea what to expect as I'm coming into this. And I clicked answer, and I then get dragged into this conversation. Hello. Now, mind you, Alex, and I don't want to speak to it too much, and I really don't want to ride his name and his brand too much. I say this to you guys because this is a kind of private training. The replay will be uploaded in the school. But when you're worth that much money, you're a very rational person, as I talked about. There was very little chit chat about getting to know you. He pretty much just said, hey, I saw your scripts and your calls. I thought they were really good. What are you working on currently? And I just said, well, I'm a sales manager for this and I'm kind of closer for that. He said, okay, how much are you making a month right now? And, I'd taken, my best month. So I just said like, doing roughly 20K. Okay. What are you doing this weekend? How soon could you meet us? I don't know, tomorrow. And it was a Thursday, mind you, and tomorrow would have been a Friday. And he said, okay, cool. You're going to come meet us in Vegas. And so sure enough, I said, yeah. And one thing led to another. They booked me tickets. They flew me all the way out to Vegas. I got to meet them and the team, all because I sent them these scripts with some call recordings of me closing a 2K, a 6K, a 9K, and a 20K deal. And maybe it was the 20K that got to him. I don't know, but this circulated really, really fast through the whole business. And yeah, Mayor, the marketing was Mayor's a huge marketing was. Oh, Charlie, I saw your question here as well. I'll cover that in a moment. M&A isn't simple or easy. Yeah, M&A isn't simple or easy, Dan. You got that right. From there, I spent a day and a half in Vegas, and they just proceeded to pick my brain about what they could do to market this better. They said, look at our funnel. What do you think of this? And I said, I don't think you're doing much to prime the customers in terms of preparing them. Like, this is a really complex. What would you do differently? Oh, I would do this. I would do this. I would do this. Okay, listen to some calls. What do you think of these calls? Well, you're not even pitching in like a three-pillared fashion. So I would do something like this. All they did was ask me sales and process questions. That's all I did was answer. I didn't make an ask. And then eventually they were like, okay, what would you need to leave what you're doing right now? And I said, look, I'm fairly comfortable where I'm at. Just use the information that I'm giving you. And then they said, look, we're going to make you an offer. You don't have to take it, but just think about it. We'll call you this evening to let you know what it was. And I was sitting in this hotel suite that they'd paid for. And that's what they called me. And they told me the deal, 10K a month with the 5K signing bonus. And so I say that to say, like, this stuff is, you might really take it for granted, but that is what got me this deal. This is what got me all the way out to Vegas. Some ultra rich guy caught wind of me, didn't know about me at all. I had no brand, mind you. I don't think I was even running Persuasion Academy back then. Persuasion Academy was just starting. I had no YouTube channel. I didn't even have my video with Michael Oliver. I had maybe all of 3 posts on Instagram, more or less. So I was doing this as like ground zero. I was just some closer. But because I could sit there and position myself and answer question after question after question after question, only about what I knew about selling this product, that they took me seriously. And eventually they made me that offer. So cool. Any questions? Spin it back to you guys. That's a nice document. Would you oppose to sharing that link? So yes, so for anybody who's wanting this recording today and this document, it is going to be in school. So I'll show you guys. This is identity closing. All of this stuff will be loaded today. If you come to the classroom section, there is the under the radar client acquisition. If you don't have access to that, message me. In here, you've got the original teaching. What's the Persuasion Academy? Yeah, so Charlie, Closes into Consultants used to be the Persuasion Academy. That was what I used to call it. So in here is the document, the original, like the 1.0 teaching of this, and then linked in here is going to be the strategy call example. This is also a more expanded written version of the same training today. So yeah, that's how it all works. So questions that you guys have got. Charlie asked, do you have coaching offer that would help us assemble and create all the scripts, SOPs we're proposing to a potential client? Yeah, that's Prepare, not Hormozi. Thanks, big man. Yes, so I do. So I'd say for those of you guys who want more, I encourage you to consider, I've built a full stack training and curriculum and mentorship called Fractional Sales Consulting, where we will carry you through the process, start to finish, of how to go out there, position yourself, find, sign, and close your fractional sales consulting deals, your first deal or your next deal. It's the process that we've used for a handful of our students so far, and it's what one of our students was able to use to close a deal today. He got a 5K base plus 3K rev share. Dakota, once more, probably haven't heard of him because he's a pretty no-name figure, under the radar, not huge stuff, but he followed the same process. He got connected with somebody. He just led with value around the one thing that he knew and was really, really good at. And sure enough, it led to an offer being made, and he closed with a guy named Farhorn who's doing an offer launch. So yeah, if you guys want more, I'll drop a link in the chat. If you guys want to schedule a call with me, there'll also be one put into the academy later on, or into the group later on. But yeah, with that, before we close this down, questions that you guys have got for me, go ahead and drop them in the chat. Okay, Charlie asked, are we actually going to do the closing for the client? Do we place closers for them? So great question. I would say it depends. It depends on how and where it depends on how big the client is and where they're at. So if the client already has a sales team, which I prefer people that already have sales teams, You can step in and just push their sales team harder to get more deals and grow and push improvement. If they don't have one, no, you don't have to take sales calls for the clients. You can if you want to. It's entirely optional. I would advise against it. I would advise you get a closer from day one and protect your time. So you place closers on them is the answer. If I'm doing the closing, I'm selling my time, no leverage. That's my concern. Yes, no. So the full protocol is like no. However, it's not that you should never do it. There might be moments where you have a sales team that you're leading that is like needs to be checked, like hard checked. I've had that where you're with a team that's just not performing, and so I'll sometimes hop down on a phone and like get a deal just to show them how it's done. Or like if they've got setters that cannot hit KPI, this is something that I actually had to do for deals. We had a set team over there that I was leading. And all of them were complaining about how they couldn't get to KPI, couldn't get to KPI, couldn't get to KPI. And so I think I blocked off my calendar for like 2.5 hours a day just to prove them all that it was possible. And I put up, I hit their KPI for 4 days in a row and said, I don't want to hear any complaints out of you guys. If you can't hit it by the end of the week, you're gone. And then sure enough, everybody started to hit KPI. So those are some of those like stylistic things. As far as what you can do as a consultant to get things done or get shit done. So that's where no, you shouldn't lead with, hey, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to close all the deals, I'm going to build a team for you. But if you're a closer, sometimes you put your money where your mouth is. It's fun. I'll put my link in the chat if any of you guys want to schedule a call. Daniel, was your first 10K, was the 10K your first fractional consulting client? Quite frankly, it was, yes. I had been asked to do some sales consulting before, I think on a smaller scale, but this was the first like real deal one that was like, okay, there's like actual work to be done here. They had a team of a couple closers at the time, a couple setters at the time. And it was also the largest, like one of the largest businesses I think I'd worked for. Not in terms of revenue, but just in terms of their core team. They definitely had the strongest core team out of like everyone I'd met. But yeah, sweet. That's Maverick and Top Gun style, proving it's possible approach. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, don't be afraid to get the shit done if it needs to, but you don't have to promise the client that I'm going to do the closing for you. Cool. Rushel, how do you find good offers and clients to work with? Is it like sales where you got each at the start? It depends. So it starts with this. The process that I showed you today, the next step to this is like, once you actually have someone who says, hey, I'm interested, I want to do business with you, I'd be curious, let me know how we can work together. The next thing comes diagnosis. So I don't cover that today. I'm going to do another training in a few days' time once I get all the resources and stuff put together. I got a lot of things spinning on my side, but I'll explain exactly how you price your services to get them to rationalize a 5K, 8K, 10K a month base for working with you. So that will be a later training. Charlie asks, is your fractional model similar to having a sales agency where you could place both setters and closers, or not quite? So it's different from a sales agency because like a sales agency isn't trying to like keep the client in, it's a different relationship. But like from what I understand about sales agencies take two forms. They're either outhouse sales management, meaning that the sales agency runs company sales trainings, company team meetings to get salespeople to close deals for other people. So the client just does product, pretty much the sales culture and environment is somebody else's, and they take a percentage of everything that comes in and they pay commissions to the closers. Some also sales agencies, which are more recruitment firms, do the placement of setters and do the placement of closers. The reason why I don't like the placement of setters and closers is because it's not even about where you put them. Like you can place a great setter and a bad offer and they won't perform. And that's not your fault. It's the offer. The business needs to be fixed. And so you as a fractional consultant, you ensure your setters that you place work, that your closers place work, because you are making the offer somewhere where someone can succeed. So that's how it's different from kind of the recruitment model. Different from the sales agency, you're building the sales team, sales culture, and sales environment inside of your client's business, meaning it's the client's company meetings that are training them. It's the client's sales scripting that's getting people good. Sales agencies kind of keep it all. It's like a fraternity that's like reselling other people's stuff. It's crazy. And it's also not a great deal for clients because there's typically high churn and stuff like that. Clients would prefer to have their own in-house sales team that loves, is loyal, and respect to them as a business, not to somebody else. And I know this because I worked for one of the largest sales agencies, Sales Sniper, briefly. It was hell, quite frankly. I really didn't like it there. All of the loyalty was to Sales Sniper. It was not to the accounts. And all of the training was from Sales Sniper. It wasn't account specific. And the business owners sometimes had a really tough relationship with Sniper because Sniper was controlling the cash and the money and all this stuff. But also if you're a sales agency getting paid off of just the gross of what the business makes, like you as a business are trying to pay your overhead expenses and other fees out of a margin that you're making. You're pretty much a commission only, like you're a commission only entity to a business. I think Sniper, for example, and don't quote me on this, but I think they took 23% of everything that they collected as far as cash from a business. So if you're a business owner, you got to pay 23% of anything that you'll make to somebody else right out the gate, which that stinks. The other thing too is if you're running the sales agency, you're going to have someone who has to do your HR, someone who has to do your bookkeeping, someone who has to manage your payroll. You have to have softwares for your payroll. You're going to have to deal with your own hiring, your own onboarding. Those are things that cost money. And so I'd rather have the business pay for those and I just get my fee each month and the business kind of expenses all that as opposed to me having to deal with those expenses. Cool. What do I have to do to get access to the training in school? Oh, Walter, I'll give it to you right after the fact. If you guys don't have access to the training inside of the school group, message me and I'll give you guys access. Once more, drop the calendar in the drop the calendar in the chat for those of you guys who are interested in going kind of full stack, full-fledged with this. We've got a full and complete training and mentorship to kind of show you guys how to go out to the market quickly and get results. We cover more client acquisition strategies. We go deeper in some of the nuances of negotiations. We go deeper in all the different things needed to close a deal. Josh, how much monthly revenue at a bare minimum to seek when going out finding coaches as a consultant for? I'm guessing 75K per month. Okay. Yep. No, it was great having you on. Cheers. 75K per month revenue. So the next training that we're going to do is how to price your services. So pricing your services is not just picking a number and getting someone to close to it. It's actually a process of diagnosis and zeroing in on like a real figure that they can meet. You can't just pull a number out of the blue. You really have to collaborate with them to find a price that makes sense and structure your compensation to grow over time. Cool. Charlie asks, so with fractional consulting, I'm building a sales infrastructure and selling it as a once-off to my clients to install into the business, and then my job is done, or is opportunity for MRR? So yes, you can charge, it depends on how you want to frame it, but like your setup is sales infrastructure, like sales process, sometimes funnel development, sometimes hiring. And then your MRR is you actually coaching and leading the sales team. So that's you like being the person running meetings like this, training the sales team, reviewing calls, or managing a sales manager to do those things properly. This is why you want to start with the industries that you have experience in, because if you have to manage the first one or two salespeople, you can get them to produce just by giving them advice on how to close deals. You don't have to close the deals. You can just explain to them. Oh, so for example, Dana, you mentioned you sell construction services. So it's like if you're coaching someone on how to sell construction services, you don't have to take the call. You can listen to the call and say, hey, you said this earlier on, that doesn't mean anything to them. Focus your presentation on this. So if you guys have never coached people before, I will do another training later on that explains when should I start consulting, because there's some kind of experience or background you should have. Charlie, where can I best message you? The best place is going to be school or Instagram. And if you message me there on school, I get a bunch of messages. So just say it's Charlie from the group call. And if you want to message me on Instagram, whichever one you like more, it's Caleb Y. Cullah. Say, hey, it's just Charlie from the group call. And oops, I sent that direct to one of you guys, Caleb Y. Cullah. Message me there as well to say, hey, it's Charlie from the group call and know who you are. Sweet. But yeah, so once more, if you guys are curious about taking this really to the highest high, or the next level, set up a time and we can sort of talk about the full stack sort of program mentorship and all that goes into that. It's 1 year that you'll be working with me through this. So get you a couple clients, get you set up. And the goal is to get you to the goated 30K a month from 2, ideally 3 clients that you're with MRR. Sweet. This sounds way better than sales agency. Those guys need pallets for those body bags and the cars that they leave in their wake. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say Rushel right now is in the process of joining a business that is leaving a sales agency. I don't know, Rushel, if you want to come on and speak about the experience, but yeah, I spoke to the founder. Well, I spoke to the founder, and yeah, it's mayhem, right? It's like your most important part of your business that is sales is, oh, congrats, Rushel got hired for it. But yeah, for the business owner, the most important part of your business that is sales is like in your neighbor's house. And you're just wondering what they're doing all day. They're banging pots and pans around, cramming deals over the line. 4 or 5 people might be taking different calls. It's not a really fun experience for business owners. Engineers tend to do it because they don't like selling and they don't want to manage a sales team. But that's where if you can be that bridge between a great owner and the business and the market, then they'll love you for it because it's like, okay, this is me and mine. But yeah, Rushel, congrats. Rushel's been a long time follower, so stoked that he got in that account. Okay, cool. Nobody like my boy Russo. Love it. Excellent. So yeah, Charlie, message me on Score, message me on Instagram. So that is all for today, guys. If you have any other questions, drop them in the chat. If not, we're going to wind off the call in 2 minutes or so. We'll wind it off at 7:05. Once more, the recording of this is going to get posted in school. So I'll show you guys that once right now so you know how to get access to it. If you go to school, not identity closing, but go into closes into consultants, you'll come here to the classroom section. If you come here to under the radar client acquisition, it will be uploaded here. There'll be a tab underneath here that is live call recording, and you'll get access to it. On top of that, you'll get the written version of this whole demonstration today, or everything that I talked about today, and another video kind of explaining the same topics. This I get a bit more granular on exactly what to say, some templates, some additional pro tips I didn't cover here today. I opened these up to answer questions that you guys have got that maybe I didn't cover in that. But sweet, you guys are killers, savages. Thanks for the sauce. Yeah, Rushel, thanks for coming on. Congrats, solid win. It's been a long time that you've been going through the journey. One of these days, eventually we'll get you into FSC. Maybe you'll be that for Ismail. You'll be able to help him bring all this stuff in-house. Jim, I believe it's a new face. I've not seen you before, but welcome. Glad to have you here. Charlie, also, I believe maybe a new face as well. Daniel, too. Daniel Schrader. What did you mark there? Signed up for the call tomorrow. Okay, sweet, excellent. Yeah, so, and I believe, Daniel, I think we might have met sometime in the past. I also see Aaron Johnson, first time as well. I see Octo GTM as well, and Sim. So yeah, it's a small little group, but it's great. It means I can go deeper with the questions you guys have got. But that's all for today. Appreciate you guys on attending the first one of these. Fractional sales consulting is the next evolution for a salesperson. This is direction the market is going to head and trend over the next couple of years. If you master this process, you master building remote sales teams, and we'll show you guys how to go into industries that aren't using this yet and be able to consult for companies doing new and more innovative things than showing people how to start dropshipping stores. But there's plenty of money doing what the market's doing now, which is alternative education services and things of that nature. So with that, you guys are in the forefront of something great. You're in on it early, so be happy that you're in here while it's small. I'm sure this will grow over time, but you guys get in early, get the first pick before some of these things get saturated. We have to update them. But yeah, appreciate you guys coming on. Yeah, and I hope to speak to you all soon. Cheers.